You're good to go.
Thank you, Allison. Good evening, everyone. I am Karen Green, Deputy Supervisor of the Town of Manlius, filling in tonight for Supervisor Theobald, who's away on a well-deserved vacation, and I appreciate this unique opportunity. We'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And if we can go around the board, please, and introduce yourself and say hello.
Hi, I'm Sarah Bollinger, counselor.
John Deere, Town Councilor.
Elaine Denton, Town Councilor.
Caitlin Creasel, Town Councilor.
Heather Waters, Town Councilor.
Great. I'm glad you're all here. And I also would like to recognize and am very grateful for their participation and attendance tonight. And that is, well, Randy hopefully will join us. Chief Kroll, Michael Kroll, Robert Cushing, Highway Superintendent, Tim Frateschi, our town attorney, Doug Miller, town engineer. Yep, there's Doug. Ann Oot, our town manager, and of course, whom we all rely on, Allison Weber, our town clerk. So thank you very much. We have an interesting agenda tonight, but it should be brief. And we'll start with an approval of the minutes for July 8th, please.
This is Sarah. I did make a couple of adjustments to the minutes. I'd like, if those are okay with you, Allison, I'd like to move approval.
Yep. They were just clerical in nature, so they're good to go.
I'd like to move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No. Confirmed. Thank you. And then we have an approval of abstract number 15.
Hi, let's see what you are, Madam Deputy Supervisor. I make a motion to approve abstract number 15 in the amount of $411,000, $763.64.
May I have a second?
I'll second, John.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, confirmed. Item number 5, we have been in discussion for quite some time with our Town of Manlius Police Department and the Fayetteville Manlius School District regarding the Special Patrol Officer. And Chief Kroll, if you can fill us all in from there and what's been going on since we last met, please.
Yes, thank you. So the FM School District, quite some time ago, formed a safety committee that I was a part of, and we had a series of recommendations that the FM School District would like to implement to include the addition of some special patrol officers for the FM district. The goal was is they would like a uniformed officer to be at every one of their campuses within their district. In order to do that, they actually voted on and approved 4 positions. Because of the unique nature of that, we identified that an SPO, which is actually a peace officer, not a police officer. There's a minor difference between the 2 classifications in the state of New York. But we all agreed that an SPO or basically a retired police officer that would come back, be in uniform and to be in those schools in order to provide the safety and security, as well as the forming of partnerships and relationships with the students. That was all voted upon, and we came up with a contractual or an agreement And the FM school district would like to proceed with that agreement. I think everybody has that agreement, has looked at the contract. And just so you're aware, an SPO is basically like a part-time police officer essentially, but classification is a peace officer. So they're uniformed. They do basically all the same types of duties that a school information resource officer would do, but at really like a lesser level. So there's very little burden on the town of Manlius. I've agreed to accept this as an addition to what we're doing right now in the interest of the request of the FM school district. The FM school board has reviewed the contract and completely understands the agreement, and they've also unanimously agreed to go forward with the program. So tonight I was just looking for some basically a vote to allow the town supervisor to sign this agreement between the town of Manlius and the FM school district to proceed forward with, at this time, 2. Originally, we're going to start with 1, but the superintendent had indicated that he would like to start with 2, and it would be 2 essentially part-time police employees that would fill this role as SPO.
Thank you, Chief. And being part-time, these officers would still be in the school 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then they just wouldn't be back into the department in the summer.
That is correct. Unlike
In the
the
school.
full-time school information resource officers that FM has 3 right now, they support 3 of those. These individuals would only be in the school. They wouldn't do anything other than school duty. During the summertime, they'd be on break, just like the teachers are on break and the students are on break. And as a part-time position, they wouldn't receive any of the benefits. And by contract, actually, in agreement, we would not use them for anything other than school assignment.
And it is a 2-year contract right now, too, correct?
Well, it's actually a 1-year contract. It just seems like a 2-year contract because of their budget cycle. So it's intended to be an annual agreement. Yeah.
Good.
It's a two semesters. So it's the 2021 school year and the 21-22 school year.
Is there any discussion?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure,
Deputy.
go ahead, Caitlin.
That's okay, thank you. So I wonder, Chief, if you have some background information on what the school district has done in terms of why they're bringing this to the town, why they're interested in having these individuals in the school. Like, what is the thought process behind that, and what is the need really for these additional for these SPOs or for these additional officers to be in the school?
Well, the need was identified through this committee that I mentioned earlier. FM School District had a school safety committee that we put together and identified needs for the school district. So it was exclusively identified through this committee at FM School District. In addition, really, they just wanted for additional safety and security and to sort of piggyback on our existing school information resource officer program. They all agreed that it was very prudent to have additional individuals in the school. And that's where we came up with the SPO program. Other school districts in Onondaga County have already done it, have already implemented the process. And it just was natural for them to come to us and ask for these extra personnel to be in the schools.
Who comprised that committee? What was the makeup of it?
The safety committee was chaired and organized by a professor out of Oswego, And she's kind of like a local expert essentially on school safety. She actually also chaired the committee for Onondaga County when the district attorney put together a similar program to identify school needs and safety. So she chaired the FM committee, but it was comprised of the superintendent, the police department, the fire department, members of the school board, community members. I'm probably missing a couple of roles there, but it was a pretty unique committee that FM put together to identify safety and security needs for their district.
How many people were on the committee total? Do you have any, and it doesn't have to be exact, but a rough idea?
I don't know exactly, but there had to been 10 to 15 people there
Okay.
from various aspects of the community.
And did this go to the broader FM community for feedback in any way?
Well, the school board was affiliated with this, and that's where the feedback comes from. They're the school board, so they provide feedback from students, teachers, administrators, community, the whole bit.
And did this, did it pass unanimously to bring this to us, or were there some people opposed to it?
No, Dr. Tice, I know, is listening right now from the school district, and he'd be able to give me a better information on that, because I didn't chair the committee. I was just a member of the committee.
Yeah, if you don't have the exact answers, that's okay. I'm trying to get a sense of just the conversations that have happened and what the types of discussions were, so that I know a little bit better where the need is coming from and what the justification for it is.
Hey, Caitlin, I don't mean to, I
Heather?
want to start. I don't want to interrupt you because I really did so, and I apologize for rudely interrupting you at our last meeting. I actually wanted to say that I remember this initiative because I remember after the Parkland shooting, I went to one of the very first meetings that ended up being the precursor to the committee. They formed the committee after that. They called, and I quickly looked it up. They called, and my dog is trying to come into this room, apologies. They called it the Safety and Security Task Force. They covered 4 key areas: mental health, threat assessment, facilities, training, and personnel. It was a 27-member group, representatives from all the school buildings, some parents, high school students. And it was convened in 2018. And they met 8 times, or were scheduled to meet 8 times, and they did a preliminary report on the progress, and then they did findings that were presented to the Board of Education, and then the final report was given to the Board of Education. The thing is that, and I say this lovingly because our meetings are also not always well attended, the board meetings are often not very well attended. So I think one of the other what I remember as a parent was that they reported on it in their newsletter that came through. I think.
Folks,
My kids go to FM, and I pay. I'm not like studying it every day, but I pay pretty decent attention, and I didn't really see this come across anything. So I was just wondering. I certainly could have missed it, but.
Dr. Tice is actually an attendee in the room, and if you'd like, I can add him and allow him to speak if you have questions and that's something you'd like to do.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay, hold on one second. I'll get right on that.
Sure.
Well,
And
so I just have a
welcome,
question
Andy.
while Dr. Tice gets connected. Chief, I'm just curious, some of the duties in here, like counseling or providing a counseling resource and stuff like that. And I just wanted to know, because most of these folks are going to be previously thoroughly trained through some police department. And I just wanted to know, is there any additional training or like optional training that maybe not every officer gets that these SPOs would be getting?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. So early on in the process, when Dr. Tice and I started to kick around this idea of bringing on SPOs, I was very adamant in indicating to him that these people just can't be anybody in our uniform. They not only will receive the minimum qualifications and training associated with the position, but they will also attend all of our normal in-service training program that every town of Manlius police officer receives. which is probably more than any other agency in Onondaga County. So I told him, I said, if we commit to this, and we agree to do this, they have to be equally trained, at least equally trained, than our average town of Manlius police officer. And he agreed to that. So part of the agreement would be, in addition to 100% reimbursement from the FN school district, but they would be allowed to leave the school and come to our normal annual in-service training programs, so that they would have at least the minimal amount of training that any other Manlius police officer would have. And if that changed in any way, I would pull the plug, because I don't want Manlius police officers, well, if it's an SPO or a Manlius police officer, they can't wear a uniform unless they're adequately and fully trained in every aspects of those positions. So, and in addition to that, our accreditation dictates that. CLIA accreditation indicates that no matter what the assignment is, well, if it's a police officer, a peace officer, an SPO, whatever the case may be, they have to meet minimum standards and qualifications for training in order to be in that assignment. So you're right, they would get our normal training like every Manlius police officer does, but in addition to that, there are other trainings that are specifically associated with the school resource officer program. They would receive that training as well, and FM has agreed to cover the cost of that as well.
Dr. Tice is in the room and able to speak now.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Dr. Tice or the Chief?
Dr. Tice, if you wouldn't mind, I asked a few questions there. If you had any information you wanted to add to the Chief's assessment of the road I was kind of going down a little bit, if you have anything to add to that, that would be very helpful.
Good evening. This is Craig Tice, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak before the town board. In terms of the program, since my arrival 5 years ago, I began the conversation with Chief Marlowe at the time. And so this has been ongoing. This is nothing that we rushed into. It's been very thoughtful and deliberate over the course of the past 5 years, trying to take into account not only the security and safety needs for the students, but also the administrative part of it and dealing with the union and moving forward. So it's been very deliberate and thoughtful, and I appreciate Chief's work on this to wrap it up here at the end. What really stemmed from those conversations over the years and culminated, as the Chief indicated, with our recent safety and security task force was the need for a presence, a response in terms of in the event of an emergency. And so having every campus covered, which was identified by some of the parents on the task force, such as Mott Road. As you know, we operate 6 buildings on 4 campuses. So in some ways, the SPOs will be able to provide that redundancy. They'll report to the CIROs. As you know, we all work for the same taxpayers, and I think everyone has tried to be very mindful in terms of the costs of the CIROs. And we have certainly, I think, supported with 3 positions. If you recall, 5 years ago, we only had 1 position. And since my arrival, we've been able to add the other 2, not only to provide service at the high school, but also both middle schools. So as you could expect, it begged the next question of moving the program forward and providing some support for the elementary schools. So as Chief indicated, we did put 2 in the budget for this year. And then we put 2 in the budget for this upcoming school year, which we're already in the middle of. That we put a freeze on. So as all of us, we had to tighten our belts. So I'm really here, even though we assumed we would be adding 4 over time to cover all 3 elementary schools and having redundancy at our largest building, the high school. Ideally, we'd like to go with 4, but at this point in the budget, we have the 2 positions. In all likelihood, it will be Mott Road, and then the extra position will be a floater to support the high school, but also being able to report to both middle school campuses to provide support to those officers as well, who really have to cover 2 buildings on each of those campuses. So I don't know if that's helped to augment the questions that you had asked, or if there's other information that you would like, but as Chief indicated, it was a result of the task force. There were a lot of other asks as well in terms of security, camera systems, laminate for single point of entries, but also social emotional counselors. As you know, the district has added homeschool liaisons, a combination of school psychologists, counselors, and social workers to be able to connect with our families that often find themselves unable to connect for one reason or another, working multiple jobs. So we want to do our part to be able to reach out to those families as well. So building these relationships and having the stability, I appreciate your support and the chief's support for this, having worked in another district where when I arrived there, it was more of a revolving door, people looking for, overtime. They may have been Syracuse University security officers. As you know, the strength of any of our programs here, whether it's the CSIROs and then now with the SPOs, hopefully at the elementary schools with your approval, it's building those relationships with the students and being able to be a resource for them.
And providing stability. Thank you, Dr. Tice, and thank you for answering the questions and commenting. Are there any other questions or comments? Elaine?
Thank you. Hi. So I just have some clarifications. So this says that it would start September 1st, 2020, and it would expire on June 30th, 2022. So to me, it sounds like it's a 2-year agreement.
It should be 1 year. I cannot, it should read 1 year. I don't know how that must have been a typographical error that was.
So
yeah, it's similar to our school information resource officers that we enjoy a contract with both ESM and FM. Those have always been 1 year contracts. So that was the intent. So if we need to adjust the time frames, then we could do that.
All right.
So that's my other question, because on the 17th, there's like a point in here that says 17 when we would renegotiate, it would be May of 2021. So that would indicate a 1 year contract. So there needs to be a little bit of adjustment on the time frame for this for me to make sense. And then the other point I just saw in here was, again, what Counselor Deere mentioned about the confidential counseling. I don't know, I know it's potentially confidential between the officer and the student, but at the same time, you are talking to a police officer. So how much, confidentially, like, can you say that it is confidential when potentially it could be used against you? I don't know.
Is the question directed to me or the chief? I'm sorry.
Either one.
Well,
I'll take a stab at it first,
Okay.
and then the chief can provide color commentary here. I'll do the play-by-play. Basically, in our DASA regulations, the Dignity for All Students Act, it is stipulated, and it's stipulated again in the contracts, that the officers cannot engage in student discipline. So as you might expect, my administrators have a little bit more latitude in enforcing the district code of conduct. So if it's a criminal matter, certainly, or a life safety matter, it's wonderful to have the law enforcement at our disposal. But our first go-to usually is the administrators who handle all of the student infractions and so forth. So they will oftentimes bring in school counselors to assist with that, especially if a student's having difficulty or working towards restorative justice. So we try not to make a mountain out of a molehill unless it's absolutely necessary, but knowing that the backup support is there in the event of a life safety incident is, I know, very important to the administrators.
Well said, Dr. Tice. We've had and enjoyed such a great relationship with the FM school district with our school information resource officer program. We've never had an issue with communication when it comes to some of those matters, and they work so closely with the school administrators and follow all the guidelines from the education department and the district. and which is consistent with what the goal is and the objectives are of the entire program. So it.
Chief, that actually leads me into a question I want to make sure that I articulate well. The role of these officers is to provide elements of safety in the school, but safety from whom? Like who is the enemy in this situation that we are trying to mitigate by having these officers in the district?
As you can imagine, depending on the age of the child and the developmental level, it could be something from bike safety to Halloween safety. As you know, we are required to provide drills. For years, it's always been fire drills, and now it's been expanded to active shooter, lockdown type drills. So certainly having that expertise of the officers being able not only to work with the children on bicycle safety or Halloween safety, but also to be able to help us analyze our active shooter drills or emergency escape routes. That all enters into it as well.
I have heard nothing but really positive feedback about Officer Golden at FM High School, and from everything I've heard, he's really provided a lot of opportunities for students to have someone else to connect with that's in a position of authority, and especially to have a person of color in that role. I think is really important, and has provided a lot to the students and the staff and faculty at the high school. So I've really from everything I've heard, I've found it to be a program that I really agree with. What I'm wondering is, and I apologize, my cat keeps clawing up my leg. So if you see me jump, it's because I'm actually bleeding now. So that's happening. Gotta love Zooming from home. But the nature of this program and then its need for expansion is what I'm wondering. And so I wish I could get more information from community members as we look to partner with the school district on this. If that's something that they want. Do they want more officers in the school? Do they want officers like this in the elementary school? That would be a different vibe in the elementary school than what we've seen in the past. And I would be.
Oh, I'm sorry, Caitlin.
Thank you, Doctor. This is just my final thought, and then I'll allow you to respond. There's been a lot of pushback just in the last few months from students in school districts saying that they don't want police officers in their schools anymore. And they've been pretty loud and vehement about that, feeling that it doesn't make them feel safer. And I don't want to speak for the students at FM, but I wish I could get more of their feedback on whether or not this is a program that they like, if they want to see it expanded. Do parents really want to have this in the elementary school?
Again, apologies for interrupting you, and I totally agree to go through your different points. Officer Golden is a tremendous resource. His office is constantly crowded in a good way of students stopping in to check in with him as they traverse between House 1 and House 2. And so certainly in his presence, I think a lot of people feel he's a role model to the students. And I think everyone, checks in with him, and he really genuinely cares about the students, as do the other officers. As Heather indicated, whether it's been the newsletter or if you look at social media, you will see Officer Phillip working with the children at the Eagle Hill Enders Road campus, and they are able to build that relationship, and they broached the topic of sidewalks, and it eventually became a class project that I believe was presented, as you're nodding, to you. It's very exciting and that's the key. And I think you hit on it, Caitlin and Heather and Elaine as well, that they're school information resource officers. It's that information piece for students. It's being the resource for everyone. And we wrestled, when I was in Marcellus, we wrestled with the elementary level as well. And then all of a sudden, Sandy Hook happened. And I think it changed our perspectives in Marcellus, and it just gave us pause to consider things we had not thought before. And we were fortunate enough, In many ways, when I was in Marcellus working with Chief Wicks, that's all we had. We had CSIROs, but they were part-time retirees, and the students gravitated to them because they were like having a grandfather or grandmother in the school, and just having that grandparent there to be able to ask advice was just a huge compliment. In fact, a few years ago, you may have recalled that I believe a group of students were testing high school safety and security, and they were entering buildings pretending to be, I won't say the district they were from, but they entered one district pretending to be students of that district.
And
Over
this
in
was
Camillus, local, yeah, over in the Camillus area. And it was, I think, a well-intended school project that could have gone awry because they hadn't communicated their intent. And they actually breached a number of school districts in the area without, again, giving too much away. What was cute about what happened in Marcellus, because of the familiarity between the officers and the students, and again, I know that's what we're all working towards here, they entered the Marcellus buildings and were immediately approached by the officer, who said something as simple as, "Who am I?" And the students couldn't identify by name the officer, and he says, "And I know you don't go here," because every student knows who I am. And that's the kind of relationship and building that level of trust. So we were, I think, the only district that was able to stop the breach of security right at the entrance. So it's that kind of relationship. You don't need the security until you need it, and you don't want it to be an afterthought. But at the same time, having the presence there to be able to work with the children is immeasurable. And again, having worked with officers while I was at Skinny Atlas, it was the state police over there, and then working with the town of Marcellus, or excuse me, Village of Marcellus Police. I've just had a great experience with it over the years in multiple districts. So I'm happy to hear your positive comments about our work here in FM. If you recall, years ago, it wasn't an easy decision. Way back when, bringing in an officer raised a lot of questions. Was it needed? And over the years, I think the program has proven itself over time. So I appreciate your kind comments. Thank you.
I think that the one thing that I would, and I'll consider to think about this more, is with Sandy Hook. I mean, that was the most devastating thing for me, especially with my kids being so young. It haunts me every year on the anniversary. It was just so devastating for this country. But the need to have safe schools, I've called Wegmans, and I've asked, like, what is yours? Because it haunts me. I mean, I just don't want this to be an experience I ever want to have to go through. And anything we can do to protect our students in our school districts within the town of Manlius, we should absolutely do. But I just wonder if, with all the research I've read, it doesn't always, it really seems to call into question, do officers in schools actually increase safety? And if there was a shooter situation, how likely are they to actually mitigate the amount of students that are impacted by a situation like that? And what are the other types of interventions that might prevent that from having happened that are perhaps more effective? And I think you touched on a couple of those with more counselors and psychiatrists and psychologists inside the schools. So those are the things I'm weighing and that I'm cognizant of as we consider partnering with the school district on this. Are we really helping to increase the safety of the students and improve the safety of the schools? Or are we still in kind of response mode post Sandy Hook, where I certainly would have voted for this at the time because I was so scared. And fear motivates people in that way. Like, yeah, more officers, that's absolutely going to help. So I just want to think about that more, if I could have more time on that, to really come to an understanding of will more officers actually improve that or not? And I would be very interested to have our board informed by the public in a public commentary period. I'd be just so interested to hear, perhaps we get no feedback. Perhaps everyone says they love the officers and they want 12 more. We just can't afford it. So, like, let's hear what they have to say. I would be really interested in hearing that from them.
If I just would add one thing in relation to your original question, in addition to the leadership of Dr. Tice, remember that this decision was not hastily made. And in addition to that, it was made by this task force that was comprised of students, teachers, members of the school board, community members. So Dr. Tice went to great efforts to formulate this large group that was highly representative of our community. And it's my understanding that not only did they vote in favor of it, but it was either unanimous or nearly unanimous. And Dr. Tice, you can give me the numbers on that. But so again, this wasn't a haste decision, and it was thoughtfully and deeply thought of on what we need as a community. So this is a culmination of all those representatives from our community asking for this recommendation. So again, this wasn't Dr. Tice and I getting together and coming up with this idea. This was an idea that was brought forward by this task force that had equal representation through every aspects of this dynamic. So just keep that in mind. This wasn't just my decision or Dr. Tice's decision.
Yes, Chief, thank you so much for clarifying that. I'm definitely keeping that right at the forefront of my thoughts on this. I really appreciate that approach because it's very democratic, and I think that that's how we get to good solutions and to getting to something that really works for everyone. We will all make better decisions with more input from the community. So I hope you don't take it as a sign of disrespect that I am not, that I want just a little bit more feedback to add on to what was created by this task force. I really appreciate the work that they've done to bring this to us. It's more of like a trust but verify type of situation. I just want to have the opportunity to perhaps talk to those committee members, those task force members, and see what their thought processes are. I just feel like I need a little bit more information before I'd feel comfortable voting on it.
Elaine, did you have a question or a comment?
I just want to comment that I like the idea of potentially scheduling a public hearing so the public can comment on this. I know the school board did one as well. And I know I asked, and we can do one too. So, and this again doesn't take effect until September 1st. So we do have time to potentially do that at our next meeting, although I don't know the agenda. So I will confer to Allison on that one. But I just want to put out there that I do support, asking the public, what do they think?
Allison, is that something that we could, because I know that what we normally do is we have that 2-week period that we've been doing with the nature of the Zooms. Could we do a public hearing, Tim, right now where we kind of start one and then we'll open that up for the next 2 weeks so that we can tie that up at our next board meeting?
So we've been keeping them open just as a formality. We can if we want to schedule one, we can schedule one, promote it so that we don't feel the need to keep it open, but we absolutely can just, set one and have it. We don't have to hold it open for 2 weeks.
And two, this would be a second one because the school board already did have one.
I like
That was my point. The school board already did have a public meeting and certainly are very much in support of this. And I thank Dr. Tice for giving on the opportunity for this role. I think it's so important. And of course, the CYROS program has been so effective. I know over the years since that started, I've spoken personally with many families that are grateful that their children have someone that they can connect to in the schools and guide them, and they become friends, and the relationships are built not just for a semester, but they're built for years. And I think that is so important now, more than ever.
I've really heard wonderful things about Officer Golden. I had one young student that I got to know extremely well over the last year that had a remarkably close relationship with him, and he really helped to get her through to graduation this past year. So it's no sign of disrespect. I feel personally like I just need some more feedback from the community.
Heather, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah. Yeah, so in listening to the conversation and really appreciating that Dr. Tice is here too, for this context, and hearing everything that Caitlin said and Elaine has said too, I think this is really interesting. The careful procedure that took place was effective at doing what it needed to do for the times, and no one is disrespecting that. And I think what Caitlin and Elaine are talking about is also there's been this huge groundswell of conversation and understanding. So people could benefit probably from having the conversation and having the case made to them again in the town context. But here's the reason why I support the hearing idea. We have very few strands of connection between us governmentally and organizationally that are formal. And I frankly would like to see us have more opportunity to work closely together. So I think that a single hearing, I mean, I'm in support of this proposal. I think, you know, if there was a motion tonight to vote on it, I would vote for it. But I think that an opportunity like this for us to stand together and discuss an issue is extremely valuable, especially right now. So if it's not going to, what I would want to know is if it's going to have an impact on our ability to retain any of the people that you want to hire. I just wanted to know exactly whether that would have a negative impact if we waited and didn't vote on this tonight. And if not, and I also understand the fact that the district is under incredible pressure and extremely busy given the times and the pandemic. So I understand that's a concern as well. So I understand it's a huge ask. And so I want to acknowledge that as well. But if you're open to it and it doesn't keep us from hiring the people that are intended to be hired, I think we should do it.
Tim, have you have reviewed the contract, and do you have any comment?
Were you talking to me, Karen?
Yes, I'm sorry, Tim.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's okay. I have reviewed it, and the issue that Elaine brings up, both of them are valid issues. I thought it was a 2-year contract because that's what it says. So there's some work that might need to be done on this contract. I'm also a little uncomfortable with our police officers saying that they're going to provide confidential counseling. I think that is, I don't know that we can say that. I mean, if as an example, if a student comes and tells a police officer that something's happening in their house where there was a crime being committed, I don't know that the police officer can keep that confidential. So I'd like to work on language for that. Overall, I've reviewed it a couple times. It looks fine, and it's very much like our CSIRO contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just a couple small things.
Do the CSIRO contracts talk about confidential counseling as well?
I don't recall, but I will check it. But as Elaine brings up a very good point.
So I'd like to make a
Did
motion.
you have a question? Go ahead, Sarah.
I'd like to make a motion that we set a public hearing for the 24th, I believe is the correct date.
The
And
26th, I think.
All right, 26, sorry. And that we have legal review in the meantime before the public announcement so that a very slightly corrected version can be available. And then have that be, and just have an opportunity for public comment at that meeting. And then we can vote that night. We don't have to hold it open, and the contract will still be in effect before September 1st.
Sarah,
I do want to also ask Mike the question that, I'm sorry, Chief Crowell, the question that Councilor Waters asked was, are we going to jeopardize any of the people lined up to be accepting these positions?
Well, the answer to that is that's very possible. Right now, as of today, I have 2 officers, at least 2 officers, potentially 3. I'm sorry, retired officers that are very much interested in the position. So whether if we wait 2 weeks and we lose those possible candidates, it's possible. Because again, with the school district starting, with every district throughout, the county and this county and surrounding counties, there's going to be probably other opportunities that these individuals may go to because they made a decision earlier. I don't know that. So it's hard to say. I do know that as part of the contract and the agreement is once it is signed and it's agreed upon and I'm able to move forward, we have to start a selection process. That selection process includes a background investigation, includes interviews with the school district because they need to be involved in the selection process. That takes a lot of time. And I'm not trying to put you under any pressure, but the school year is going to begin here anytime soon. And, so who knows what's going to happen. Today we have 3, tomorrow we may have 0.
So I do hear that. I do hear that, but right, we still have our other officers at the school. So this is expanding, not.
Karen, I don't mean to interject, but there's a motion on the floor. There should be a
There
second.
is.
We can have this-
I seconded the motion.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you a second.
Oh, I didn't hear you either, Caitlin. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to get it wrapped up tonight. I think it's of the utmost important, but so we'll set the hearing for the 26th then, Allison. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tice, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And Chief, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Do we have a time for that, Allison?
6:35.
Perfect. Thank you, Allison. Okay, we have another date which we need to set, a public hearing. This is for the Pinizzato property on the corner of Enders and 92. This is for a zone change. What we need to accomplish tonight is just to set the date for the public hearing. So if I could have a motion. Tim, did you want to add anything with that?
Yeah, I did prepare a motion or a resolution for this, and it does contemplate us doing seeker, which would take us very little bit of a time. If we can always do it at the next meeting before the public hearing, or we can do it tonight. It's your preference.
Let's do it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Well, it's on everyone's mind, everyone's there. That would be great. So if we can just set the meeting, the public hearing date.
Okay, Madam,
We need a motion for that, please.
I'm going to make a motion to set a public hearing for 6:40 on August 26th.
Is there a second? Heather?
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then the next item is for a proposed hydrant for Wellwood Middle School. And this is a request from Aqua. And Rob, do you have any additional information we might need on that?
Karen, typically I usually get a letter on that, but it's usually because of the extension of the water line. Doug, you may know, my guess is they probably just are putting a hydrant on the school property. So
Yes.
Doug may have a better idea on that.
Doug, please.
I've reviewed a correspondence that the supervisor received from OCWA. The expansion, I think you've all seen over at Wellwood. OCWA is moving one hydrant to one end of the campus and including one new hydrant. So like we've done in the past, the request is that the hydrants are in, and the request is to have the supervisors sign the agreement that would include payment of those hydrants into the consolidated water district. So our recommendation is to move forward. I forwarded the paperwork to Allison's office, and she has it on file.
Okay, so all we need is a motion then to enter the document for the supervisor's signature.
Correct.
So I'll make a motion to give permission to the supervisor to approve of the application for the hydrant at Wellwood.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Any correspondence or new business? Then we'll go right to the highway superintendent, Mr. Cushing, please.
Yes, Karen, normally, the last couple of weeks I've been quiet. I haven't been able to purchase anything, so I want to come to the board tonight. It's been a nightmare season to try and purchase anything, unfortunately, with the COVID. The OGS contract is actually, the build out dates for these pickups is basically well past. So what we've done this in the past, is gone off of a mini bid system. I know the police has done this. So we did put out a mini bid for a proposal for a new Ford 350 pickup truck. I think you guys got I think everybody got the results from those bids. But there was the two bidders. And I would make a recommendation that we would take the bid for $43,000 from Genesee Valley Ford. I've done business with this organization before in the past. We have purchased from them before. I think they're actually a subsidiary of Van Bortle Ford, who typically has the OGS contract. So I'm very comfortable with working with them. So I guess I just need a motion and it has been budgeted for this year's budget. So we'll need a motion to approve that pickup truck at $43,000.
So I would make a motion to approve the Genesee Valley Ford for the 2021 Ford Model F350 for $43,000.
Second, please.
I'll second.
John, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Karen,
Opposed?
and also with that,
Yes.
Karen, we have to drive, like, typically we buy the winter equipment separately for it. We're gonna be buying this off contract. Actually, we've got a couple of quotes that we've got for the plow packages. Typically, we're able to buy them fairly close. We've got a couple of quotes. The best quote I've got is $7,300, and that's for an extendable front end plow that would go. That's with them installing it without us installing for $7,300. I'll need a motion separately to pass the plow equipment for that if we could.
I'll make the motion to approve that.
Second, please. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone?
That's all. Well, actually, I have one more thing I just wanted to mention. I promise I'll go quick. I mentioned to actually Sarah, I got a letter or an email from the state on our CHIPS funding. This is the second round of CHIPS is going out right now. We were promised about 3 weeks ago, the letters were going to be coming out, meaning that we will be receiving our CHIPS funding by official letter. We received an email the other day stating that the letters are being held indefinitely at this point. And the representative from the state didn't want to speculate at this point in time, to what's going to happen, whether we are going to receive it. Now, we've all been told we're going to receive it. But I think obviously with what's going on, everyone's tightening their belts here. So we'll see. I've sent all the paperwork in to receive reimbursement from our CHIPS funding. We have got all our checks back. Everything's in place. It's been sent to the state. So I'll keep the board up to date with what's going on with that. But I don't want to get to a point where at the end of the year we've overspent either. So we're going to have to just evaluate where we are here probably within the next month or so. And if we've got to hold back on a project this year just because we're not going to be receiving that CHIPS funding, I want the board to be able to understand why we did that. So,
Rob,
yeah.
Question for you. So you're getting ready to work on your budget as well.
Mm-hmm.
Have you considered, and is it something that I think Councilor Bollinger works with you as a liaison?
Yep.
Is that right? So maybe you've already had this conversation, so forgive me if you have, but have you considered basically planning around the idea that CHIPS funding is suspended for 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we have to look at, Heather, as a board and as you know, as a highway superintendent, that's certainly a possibility. We are in a position where we typically take it as a revenue side. So we don't put it in the budget directly. So we have a little bit of allowance for some movement there. So I'm very comfortable going into the next year. Yeah, we're gonna budget typically like we have over the last 10, 12 years that we've done it. And we base it off a certain amount of years. So to answer your questions, yes, I am comfortable with working through that process this year. You gotta remember, I believe, Tim, if I'm not wrong on this, I believe that's all bonded monies. CHIPS fund from the state of New York is all bonded monies. So the money's typically there. It's just a matter of how they're gonna send that out. You know what I mean? In what form and how much to each municipality. And you've already got some municipalities that have already received full reimbursement. So it's time, I think, more than anything else. So keeping up with the paperwork and keeping up with your documentation is going to be huge over the next year or two. But I'm comfortable with saying that I think we're going to receive our CHIPS funding. It's just going to be a matter of a little bit longer time here.
Of when?
Of when, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. And you'll keep us updated, I know. I
I
appreciate
will. Thanks for the
Yeah.
time, guys.
You bet. Planning and Development, I would like to recognize Mr. Capriati for his effectiveness with this codes, with the ISO rating. Thank you so much, and congratulations, Randy. Do you have anything you might like to add tonight?
I just had a couple things. Sorry for signing in late. I was serving the community on a fire call and we ran a little bit late. So,
I hope everyone's safe.
oh yes. And the last thing I have is I know a few months ago or so, we adopted the New York State Unified Solar Permitting Process for 25 kW and below. That was finalized today. The permit was actually amended to fit the town of Manlius. And at the last hour, myself and Lisa updated and uploaded it onto our website. So it's actually in effect on our website, ready to use right now in 3 different places. So we're moving forward with that.
Very, very, very exciting, Randy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you. Doug, do you have anything tonight that you would like to?
No, I think we're all set.
Okay.
Thanks, Karen.
Mr. Fatesky.
I am all set, Madam Deputy Supervisor. I think we're in good shape.
Okay, thank you. And Allison?
I'm all set. Thank you.
And the chief, do you have anything else you'd like to add tonight, chief?
Yeah, just a couple things. Our new police officer is doing really, really well. Officer
Great.
Grogan is still in his field training process, and he's being accepted quite nicely with the community and our coworkers. Our in-service training program, we fired up again this month. I've already completed 2 of those classes. Tomorrow will be the final class, and this month we're training on legal updates, and we're talking about officer wellness, which is one of those pillars in the 21st century policing model, and also a little bit on classroom EVOC, which is emergency vehicle driving courses. So we're going to finish that up. We're doing so consistent with the governor's order on distancing and masking and sanitation and all that stuff. So, we're still dealing with the mess at the building. I would encourage any one of the counselors at any time to come and visit our work environment right now. Thank you so much for the ability to order and utilize those trailers. Made a tremendous difference. There's a lot of things going on in our building right now. It's actually almost difficult to conduct business in the way that we would like to conduct business. It's quite the mess. The town supervisor came over for a tour last week, and I showed him exactly what it looked like. And but we're getting through it. So far, no grievances. And then lastly, I attended my very first meeting for the Onondaga County wide New York State law enforcement reform process, which was dictated through the executive order from the governor. I attended that meeting. The supervisor was also at the meeting, and it was well attended by a whole bunch of partners. And in that process, the district attorney came up with some guidance, early on guidance on how we're going to fulfill the requirements of the executive order. With that, there were 3 co-chairs that were named in that process: the sheriff of Onondaga County, the Democratic majority leader from County Executive's Office, Linda Irvin, and myself. So the 3 of us were going to co-chair that process to gain some forward momentum county-wide. And then at some point, we're going to break up into these subcommittees to address each community within Onondaga County and those community needs based on the executive order. So I'm happy to be a part of that process. And I will keep everybody posted on how we move forward with that. I do have another meeting scheduled with the district attorney and those other 2 members of the co-chair committee. And we're going to discuss again how we're going to move forward with that process. And that's all I have.
Chief, thank you so much. And thanks for that report from the information from the district attorney. And I know you've been really busy with the break-ins with the cars and all of that. Hopefully that will settle down too. So.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. We've experienced a rash of car larcenies and stolen vehicles. We finally recovered another stolen car today out of the city. And it was stolen from a residence here in the town of Manlius. And unfortunately, it was an easy grab because the keys were in the ignition. But we continue to put out on our social media post the idea that folks should lock their cars, not leave any kind of valuables in their vehicles. In fact, yesterday I received a message from one of our local media broadcasters, and we're going to try to do something on one of the local media channels to reinforce this idea of locking your cars, and please leave valuables out of sight, and certainly lock your homes as well, because some of these instances have resulted in burglaries as well as car larcenies and stolen vehicles. So we just need to be able to educate the community on keeping themselves safe.
Thank you, Chief. Ann, our town manager, do you have anything tonight?
A quick update on town court. Last evening, they held their first evening court session since the COVID shutdown. The court clerks reported that it went very well. Just a couple little tweaks they need to make for tomorrow evening. But all in all, I think it was a good evening as far as court goes. One good thing that came out of this is the Justice Court Assistance Program from New York State reimbursed the town $1,300 for the plexiglass barriers that were installed in the courtroom. One of the court clerks submitted that, and we've just received the payment this week, so that was nice. And also those in attendance in the court last night, whether it was even the attorneys in attendance, even some of the defendants in court, actually remarked at how well laid out our court is and how it flowed very well. So kudos to the judges and the court staff for getting everything in order. So that is good.
Getting it all to work. Thank you, Ann. Let's hear from the town board. So Councilor Bollinger, we'll start with you, please.
Okay, so I have 2 things to comment on. Last time we had a public information meeting regarding the new commercial zoning. We got a lot of good feedback from that. I want to thank everybody who took the time to look at those materials. And we will be doing a revision. So we're meeting again later this week. And so the final version is not yet available for public comment. So we will delay the public hearing until sometime in September. And I just want to make people aware that that's still being revised with regard to the commercial zoning. And the other thing I am pleased to announce is we had our first meeting with the town of Sullivan with regard to the Salt Springs Water Project. So that has begun. We scheduled monthly meetings to keep it on track. We do anticipate that the public meeting with regard to the water districts will be sometime in November. So that's sort of the cycle that we're on now. with the permitting going into the first part of 2021. So I just wanted to give people an update on that. There was definitely a delay due to the public health emergency, but we're back on track now.
Thank you, Sarah. Counselor Deere.
Yeah, not much from me this time. Still working on trying to figure out what we're going to do to get everybody back in person. We're going to be trying out audio quality tomorrow to see if we can do the budget sessions, since there's no real public interaction there tomorrow, to see if we can get there. Still waiting on some quotes for mics, but we're gonna do what we can to keep moving forward. And if some of the meetings have to take a little hit to audio quality just to get people back in the room so we can move a little faster, it might be that way. But we're gonna keep trying to get back so that we're all in person, see each other's faces again. But I will keep everybody updated on that as much as I can.
Thank you, John. Caitlin.
Thank you, Deputy Supervisor. A couple quick updates. I'm on the budget committee, and we did have a meeting since our last board meeting to start better understanding the process that we'll all be going through. The 4 new town councilors, the class of 2020, we are all kind of learning this together, and it's a critical component of our roles in the town. And we're learning this process in a year where the budgets of all the departments are completely askew from what they would normally be. So it's not really a good test case. So we've got our work cut out for us. But Councilor Bollinger is the chair of that committee and is helping to guide all of us in that process as we learn how that's all going to work out. I did meet with Randy this morning, and we started our process as I am the liaison to the planning department. And he was also very helpful in helping me to better understand how that process is going to work. So Randy, thank you so much for teaching me, even as I'm liaisoning to you. It's very much appreciated. So I'm eager to see how the last several months and how, as Rob mentioned with the CHIPS funding, how is this going to impact the town going forward? We want to make sure that we stick within our budget. We create a budget that's mindful of the crisis that we're facing at a state level. I am hoping to see our Congress come together to provide some financial resources for communities across the country, notably New York State, Onondaga County, and the town of Manlius, as well as our colleagues throughout Onondaga County. On another note, Sustainable Manlius has really had to take a little bit of a backseat over the last few months as the public health crisis really rendered that really difficult to move forward with. We only had one in-person meeting. Our second one was scheduled and we had to cancel it in mid-March, and we haven't been able to get that back really up and running because a lot of those relationships were so new. And so we are working on getting a Zoom meeting scheduled. So if you're interested in environmental and social sustainability, please email me and I can make sure you're on the list. And to everyone that's already on the list and that attended that first meeting, we will be reconvening that in the coming weeks. And then finally, I just wanted to thank the town of Manlius Police Department. I did call the police at 11:30 the other night when I thought someone was knocking on my door. Turned out it was my neighbor hanging up a clock. So they were ever the more gracious of answering my emergency call, even as I found out that there was no emergency to be had. They were there so quickly, and they accepted my apologies for my error. But they made us feel much safer, and the girls, my daughters, were excited to have them in the driveway for the few minutes they were there. So thank you, Chief. If you could extend my appreciation to the officers that responded to our emergency call. That's all for me.
I hope that's the greatest emergency you ever have, Caitlin.
I sure hope so. If that's the worst of it, then I'm very blessed.
Good. Elaine, please.
Thank you, Deputy Supervisor. So I just want to update everyone where we are for the Public Safety Advisory Committee. We did create the form. We had over 50 residents fill that out. An amazing community response. Councilor Deere and I have been going through them, and we will be notifying residents, hopefully by the end of this week, when we can potentially have our first meeting. Due to the response, of course, we couldn't fit everyone on the committee, but we will be keeping in touch with everyone who did apply to make sure that they are engaged and can public comment when there is a public comment time. And I'm very excited too to have our chief on the DA's committee too, so we can see this as a county-wide initiative, and then also on the local level of town of Manlius. So I'm very excited, and I'll keep everyone up to date. Thanks.
Thank you, Elaine. And Heather, please.
Thank you, Deputy Supervisor. I asked, and I want to thank Allison and John for setting up the listservs on our civic engagement on the Town of Manlius website. When you click, that you want to receive notifications. So if you go, I want to tell everybody in the public really quickly, you go to townofmanlius.org. And then once you're on the page, if you want to get onto lists and get notified, if you want agendas for meetings, you just click on Stay Informed. Then you have lots of options. 3 new options for you are the comprehensive plan updates, Sustainable Manlius, and also the Public Safety Advisory Committee. So what we're going to be doing is sending out an email we're going to notify the community about the dates for all of the meetings and options for people to participate in things that are available to them. We're putting all of that together and want to communicate it broadly at one time. I'm going to be emailing. I wanted to wait until the list was up, and then I'm going to email the 69 folks who, this is incredible, the responses we've had from the community, who are going to be engaged with the comprehensive plan committee at its launch here. And the next step for comprehensive planning is, of course, to get the listening sessions on the themes scheduled and organized. So that's what we're doing. And also on the tree commission, of which I am proudly a new official member of as a co-chair along with our wonderful chair, Stephanie, we are going to have a meeting on the 18th at 3:30. And it's becoming a very vibrant and active committee because we can focus in on some issues and then make plans and ideas to Sustainable Manlius as well and have that conversation. And it also connects to comprehensive planning. One of the things that we're going to do too is be able to articulate how do we sort of discern what's comprehensive planning and Sustainable Manlius, so we can have that conversation. One of the initial conversations I've had with some counselors is, what's great is that Sustainable Manlius gives people the ability to focus, and comprehensive planning takes a lot of time before you can actually implement things. And so Sustainable Manlius gives us an opportunity to seize opportunities and to be tactical and strategic right now on projects. So I think we're lucky to have options for folks. And I'd say the same. I'd like to thank Elaine for all she's doing on the Public Safety Advisory Committee. There's this very important structure that we're lucky to have Chief Pearl be at the leadership helm for the county. But there's so much interest that if the counselors can serve to engage people and help invest them even further in our police and in our public safety measures, I think that's a good thing. So thank you to everybody for staying in touch.
Thank you, Heather. And I just have a couple of items I want to share. I did attend the very well organized, as always, CRC committee that was hosted by the Town of Manlius Police Department. But what we had a great opportunity was to hear the commissioner of Onondaga County Emergency Management, Dan Wares, and he was excellent. And I certainly didn't realize the magnitude of work that has gone into this department. It is amazing how they handled the COVID response, their ongoing management, and what they know they have to do. in the future. And they're so appreciative of everyone's cooperation. And we're very fortunate to have a commissioner like Dan at the helm. It was a great opportunity, Chief, to be with him for almost an hour. I also would like to recognize Allison Weber, our town clerk, who was recently voted in as district director for the New York State Clerks Association. So Allison, congratulations. Well deserved.
We have all these rock stars. Congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Allison. And with that, I have not seen it here in my packet tonight, but I understand the supervisor's report was submitted to you, Allison.
Mhm.
Right. And with that, I would like a motion to adjourn.
Do we have to approve the supervisor?
Yes, yep, a motion to approve the supervisor's report
Yes.
for
Deputy
July.
I would make that motion. to Approve the supervisory report for July.
All in favor?
Every second.
Do we have to do a second?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I thought, Elaine, I thought you did. I'm sorry.
Okay, sure.
Too many pictures at once. All right. All in favor then? Good. Thank you. And a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll second it. And thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for leading tonight.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Karen, you'll have to tell Ed that you crushed him in time.
Yeah,
That he always keeps us here till midnight, and you
I'll
got
tell him several times.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Good night. Happy summer, everybody.